Max Performance. Believe, achieve, excel.
Welcome to Max Performance TV. My name is Gabriel, and today I've got Dwayne with me. Dwayne, who works for Oxford United Football Club. He's a strength and conditioning coach, and he is the founder of Max Performance. Thanks for joining, Dwayne.
Yeah, Gabby, it's a pleasure to be on here, man. It's been a while, man, and looking forward to obviously our chat today and sharing with the people my experiences to date. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Looking forward to that as well, and I appreciate your time. And we're going to dive straight in. We're going to jump into a bit of personal information, so some information from when you were younger growing up, starting off with the time where I understand that you were an AFC Bournemouth scholar for nearly a decade, just about 8 years or so. Talk to us through your time there and how it developed you as a child into your teenage years, and some of the setbacks that you may have encountered there. I do understand that towards the end of your time, you did encounter quite a setback.
Yeah, so I was at AFC Bournemouth from under 8s to under 16s with the Centre of Excellence there. I had a very, very good time during my period there. I worked under some great coaches, the likes of Jim Toshik, Gary as well, Joe Roach, and obviously I had good teammates at the time as well who were actually lifelong friends, and I'm still in contact with them. But as you know, as a kid playing football then, it was just all about just the enjoyment really. And we just played football any time of the day across the whole year. There wasn't anything to do with like any load, training load or match loads for kids back then. It was more or less when you could play football, we just did it just because we enjoyed the games that much. So obviously in hindsight, looking back now, that's probably what caused a few of obviously my injuries down the line. But no, I had a good childhood. Obviously, met a lot of people playing the game and obviously played for other clubs during my time as well. And so when I got to obviously under 16s age group, how it usually works in the UK is in the academy system. When you get to under 16s, it's like your final year to actually try to obtain what we call a 2-year scholarship. So in regards to obviously your question with the injury, that's when I actually experienced my first trauma injury, as I like to call it. Beforehand, I had hardly experienced any type of injury playing football. I always looked after myself and also ate the right things, even at those ages then. So when I did experience that first injury at under 16s, it was a bit of a setback. But I did learn a lot of personal goals for myself and achievements. And I think from that trauma and first setback, as I like to call it, my mentality on life changed as well. And I think that's obviously helped with who's made me into be today.
Now, that's quite a traumatic thing that happened, and obviously it may have been a shock to the system for the very first time. A couple of weeks after the injury happened, realizing that you couldn't realize your dream of being a professional footballer, at least at that time. What was your mentality going into that? How did you get past that sort of mental block, if I can call it that?
Yeah. So just to start off with, Gabby, the injury itself was an ACL injury in my left knee. So when the injury actually happened, I was playing the game actually against Cheltenham. I was rushed to hospital straight away. I was informed straight away that I would need surgery and what the injury was, and I wouldn't be able to play football or even do any form of exercise in my lower body for a sustained period of time. So obviously, for the first time, hearing those kind of words and having that shock in regards to how my life may change in that moment, it was difficult initially. But I had good people around me. My parents supported me all the way, my family as well, and even my friends around me. So it helped shift my mentality because I'm quite driven when it comes to goal setting. So it's more or less, okay, this is what's happened. What now? So I just started to set myself small goals. Okay, we're gonna have the operation. After the operation, what's the next procedure? Okay, cool. We're gonna go into rehab. Okay, what's the next procedure? I'm gonna go to running and those kind of things as well. So I was working on my own specific time frame and time frame set by practitioners as well in the medical department of the NHS. So and obviously AFC Bournemouth as well. They helped out with regards to physios and the doctors, etc. So even though it was a tough period, I think mentally I became a lot more resilient. And as well as that, it allowed me to actually focus on my education in my final year of obviously at the time would have been GCSEs. And I did well in my GCSEs, but unfortunately it wasn't to be, and I wasn't offered a 2-year scholarship.
Right. Now, we are going to jump into your further studies. I do believe you attended Nottingham Trent University. Just before that, you were at Brockenhurst College in Hampshire. But just
Yes, that's yeah.
that, now you wanted to be a professional footballer. You trained, you attended the academy. It was a dream. After your injury, did you try and take any steps to maybe still realize that dream, or was that something that you had completely moved out of your mind once you're fully healed, or once you were healed from your?
Um, well, I would say the pursuit of being a footballer was still there, but I took more of an interest into the education side of things because after that initial setback, it made me realize more, okay, if this was to happen again or I wasn't offered a full-time pro, I wanted to obviously make sure that I could fall back on something. So obviously I still went to Brockenhurst College and I did my A-levels there whilst I was playing for the college side, and I was actually playing for Salisbury City as well, and managed to get myself in the youth team, reserve team, and played a couple of first team games as well within those 2 years. And obviously after my 2 years doing my A-levels, took a gap year, let's say, just to work and obviously continue to play football at a semi-professional level before obviously, as you said, going to Nottingham Trent. So I think the passion for the game was still there because I enjoyed playing football. But I would say that I steered more into the career of working in sport, whether it was in coaching. And if the opportunity did come to obviously go pro, at least I know I could do that with backing of the education of my A-levels and my degree. If it didn't, at least I know I can pursue another career.
Now, just going back to your further education studies, why this college? Did you have any other options that you're considering, or did you have any other places that you were thinking of even while you were attending Brockenhurst?
So Brockenhurst initially down south, because obviously I'm from Southampton, was known as a very good sports college. And they had a very good football program there as well, which interested me because I was training there 4 times a week, as well as doing my A-levels. So it's quite similar structure to what you would get in a full-time scholarship program, whether that's in the academy or in a professional club. So that attracted me to them initially, and I was able to balance my football with my A-levels, and then obviously continuing on to university, which was a similar structure as well.
I understand. And by the time that you were accepted into university, I'd guess that you had your career path in mind already. Why did you decide on Nottingham Trent University specifically to attain your degree?
In all honesty, Gabby, I'm going to be totally honest. When I went into university, I knew I wanted to work within sport, but I didn't know what lane in sport I actually wanted to solely focus on. So, I did a degree in coaching and sports science. In itself, that it was quite a broad subject, really. So you had the coaching, one-to-one coaching side of things. So I did my level 2 and got that there. But I was actually interested in the sports science aspect in terms of physiology and exercise prescription, etc. So I looked more into the interest of that. And in honesty, Gabby, it wasn't until actually my 3rd year, I'll probably say the last 4 or 5 months before doing my dissertation, where I thought, you know what, strength and conditioning could be an interest of mine. Reason being, Gabby, at the time, I used to play with the first team at Nottingham Trent under Alexandra, who's doing very well at the moment. He's working with Leeds, obviously goalkeeping. They've just been promoted to the Premier League, so he's doing very well. So he was my coach then, and we used to have like strength and conditioning sessions with the first team. So we used to obviously have people come in who perform certain gym exercises and strength and power explosive exercises in the gym, and I just enjoyed that environment. And when I went on the football pitch, I felt the benefits across the season. I was sharper, I was stronger, I was fitter, I was more explosive. So I even spoke to one of the strength and conditioning guys and asked what their title was and what they did or what it was they were doing. Yeah. And then they explained it to me, and I thought, you know what, this is something that could be of an interest. So when I did graduate, I looked more into obviously that field, and and then obviously, what's that, 6 years later, here we are now.
Now, into that field, you graduated, last 3 or 4 months, you decided this is the place where I want to be, this is what I want to do. What were your next steps? Where did you look for scholarships, and where were you looking for job placements, etc.? How did you start getting into
Yeah, that was tough, man. I'm going to be real, that was tough, man. And those that work in the strength and conditioning industry is so competitive. So competitive. I think here, I was very naive when I came out with a 2-1 degree in coaching and sports science, and I thought I could probably walk into a job with just a degree. The only experience I had at the time was going into schools and coaching football sessions because of my level 2. I had no experience. I had minimal experience with regards to actual strength and conditioning application. So I'll be applying for certain roles, even internships I'll be applying for and getting rejected for internships even for a good year. And so I decided to actually go into full-time work outside the industry. So I worked in sales for a year, whilst obviously trying to apply for obviously certain roles, internship roles. And it wasn't until I actually went back to Bournemouth, obviously it's a family-run club and I still had good connections there. And I was fortunate enough to be offered a internship position working under Ben Bradley in the academy for 10 months, which I enjoyed a lot. And that was I'll probably say that was a life-changing moment in terms of within my profession.
Your mentality through that period as well, like you said, it was really tough. Did you ever have any doubts from that moment? Were you thinking to yourself, perhaps this isn't my career path? What would you say would be the right way to motivate somebody who's maybe in the same position as you, who's listening to your story?
Yeah. Very good question, Gavin. It's exactly what we're doing now. It's more or less, I just listen to loads of strength and conditioning podcasts and listen to the journey of other people. And they were saying exactly the same thing, whereby they would be working on the internship or looking for internship roles or job opportunities, but they'll be working 3 or 4 jobs, maybe even 5 jobs at the same time as well, just to be able to pay the bills. So that's exactly what happened with me. I had about 4 or 5 jobs at a time. Even during my internship, where it was a free internship, so I had to obviously pay bills, etc. So I was working for 4 jobs at a time, while I was just obviously grafting and enjoying the internship period and hoping to obviously get an opportunity from that. So it was more or less listening to the podcast, listening to other people's stories, and knowing that the situation I'm in is part of the process.
Now, you said that the internship lasted about 10 months or so.
Yes.
That's a set time that you have for an internship. And what were your plans after the internship? Were you hoping that you would be hired from the club, or were you hoping to be working somewhere else? What did you have in mind? After the internship?
The bigger picture. Yeah, so obviously the aim of the internship is to get as much experience on board in terms of practical experience and strength and conditioning. So the aim was always to get a job from that experience, whether it be from with AFC Bournemouth or elsewhere. And I was actually granted the opportunity to work with Oxford United's academy for the first 2 years whilst during my stay there at the moment there. And it was a unique opportunity, to be honest. And I thank Holly for giving me my first break, let's say. So yeah, because we used to play Oxford on a Saturday. Obviously, I'm working with under 18s, and Holly, she was obviously their strength and conditioning coach for Oxford United's youth team. So she saw my application. I applied for the role online. We had a chat after the game. It was more or less an informal interview, and then a week later, she offered me a part-time role with Oxford. So so I enjoyed that role for the past. Well, I enjoyed that role from 2016 to 2018. And then from then onwards, I progressed into the first team environment now, which I'm enjoying as well.
Did you expect that to happen after you had joined the part-time? Did you expect to get a position full-time working with Oxford United, or was it something as a surprise that came to you?
With regards to, is this what in the youth system or the first team, Gabby?
Oh, the first team. Once you started.
Oh, the first team.
Yeah.
No, not at all. So at the time, our training base with the academy, we used the same gym as the first team. And I remember one day, I think we decided to train earlier in that day, because we usually had our gym sessions from 5 o'clock onwards in the evening for the academy. The first team obviously trained during the day. So I think for some reason, we decided to have one of our sessions at around about 2 or 3 p.m. It must have been a half term. So I was in the gym working with the guys, and I bumped into the first team strength and conditioning coach there, Scott Daly, who of course gave me my second break, and I'm very thankful for that. He's a good guy as well. Learned a lot from him during that the time that we worked together. And I just had a chat with him. I said, I'm very much interested in obviously shadowing and see the work you were doing, because I wanted to, obviously at the time I'm building on my own coaching philosophy, so I like to pick the brains of other people and see what they're doing and continuously learn, something I'm still doing today. So he's like, yeah, that's fine. So we had a chat, and I went in for a few times during the season, and obviously helped him out wherever possible. And towards the end of the year, I actually remember it was a very odd experience because I was coming back from the gym. I was just walking back home, and he gave me a random call. It was, I think it was even like beginning of pre-season. It was such a rush, and he was like, "Oh, Dwayne, there's an opportunity coming up, and I'd like to put you forward for it." And in all honesty, Gabby, it blew my mind because I was only 2 years into a part-time position at Oxford. I haven't never worked in a full-time environment in football. And to receive a call like that, I was just blown away, and I can't thank him enough. And I just went with it. And yeah, I've been in the environment since for past 2 years now. And I'm going into my third season with the first team.
Did you feel ready for it once the opportunity came? Of course, there's going to be a few nerves that come around, but in terms of readiness, did you feel experienced enough? Well, experience might be the wrong word. Did you feel knowledgeable enough to be able to fulfill that role?
In terms of knowledge, I would say yes. But the one thing that I think Scott was impressed with was the way I worked with people and how I was around full-time men. And to be fair, yeah, a few people have said that about my personality. And I think it's because during the time, even though I was doing my internship with AFC Bournemouth, I was working with semi-professional teams as well, because Ben Bradley advised me to get some more additional experience and obviously how it looks good on the CV, etc. And I enjoyed coaching that much that I just ran with it. So I was working with Weymouth Football Club with the first team there for one pre-season, and I worked with Bashley for Bashley was a whole season as well during my time. So I was working with age groups from people from the ages of 18 years old up to 35, etc. And I think that experience there of working with men put me in a steady stead to be able to fall into full-time working with men in the professional game. And of course, in regards to certain aspects of sports science in the first team, at the first team level, I had to learn on the go. And yeah, I learned very quickly, etc. So I was able to build on that. But the initial step was due to me having good relationships with people and getting that buy-in, as we like to call it.
What are some of the differences that you can say they were working with the youth side and then working with the first team?
I mean, I think most people will know in a first team environment, it's a very high pressure environment. So you're working towards the team getting 3 points on a Saturday or on a Tuesday. So everything we do is aiming towards the team winning and the team doing well on a Saturday or Tuesday. So we're looking at the finer details, whether it's regards to nutrition, the strength and conditioning, the technical sessions, the recovery. Everything has to basically be on point and ensure that the players are ready to compete at a top level when it comes to their games.
Now, we're gonna jump back into what you're doing now with Oxford United, etc. But just before that, you are the founder of Max Performance. I see you repping the Max Performance gear as well.
Yeah.
Stunning logo that it has over there. Tell us a little bit more about Max Performance. Where in between all of this did you get the idea for Max Performance, and where did it begin?
Yeah, so another good question, Gabby. So with regards to Max Performance, I suffered my second trauma. Oh, gosh, Gabby, you take me back in timeline now. So I suffered my second injury trauma in my knee. This was 3 years ago whilst I was coaching with Portsmouth College. So I was getting additional experience, and I was working with the likes of Charlie Quigley. Again, very, very good people down there, and I was welcome. So I was actually demonstrating a drill, Gabby. So I was demonstrating a change of direction drill. And as I went to obviously turn, I felt my left knee pop. So I did my patellar tendon in my left knee. So again, it left me unable to work or walk for about, I'll say about 3 months. So during that time, I managed to get my CSCS, we call it, which is your strength and conditioning qualifications, like an international recognized qualification. And during my time, obviously, I had time to revise and get ready for those exams, but also had time to obviously just sit down and plan what I wanted my next 5 years to kind of look like, really. And to be honest, Gabby, I think I wasn't really thinking about building a company as such at that time. I just wanted to coach more. So it was more or less, okay, if I can coach more individuals and help them that way. And it kind of turned into a brand. So I started to obviously have a logo created, have a website created, those kind of things. And then it's slowly grown into what it is today, which I'm very proud of. And I'm working with good people like yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much. And with regards to that as well, how do you balance working full time as well as running a business? Because it is a business that's fairly new. So of course, if
Yeah,
you're growing, you're constantly growing, and you want it to grow. So how are you able
yeah.
to manage and balance that?
Well, I'm going to give you a question. I'm going to give you an answer and say that it's all going well. But if you were to ask my partner the same question, I think she'll tell you a different story. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. That's the toughest thing about it, Gabby. I'm always working. I'm always working because I enjoy what I do. So it's for me, it's more or less just trying to find a balance, not even just between Oxford and Max Performance, but with work, the business, and obviously life as well. So I think that's something I'll have to continue to work on going forward. But at the moment, it's just more or less, I do try to manage myself quite well. So I still have my own gym routines that I stick with regards to for my physical and mental health. I do still have breaks with friends and family and partners, etc. And I do have time to just focus on the business and also focus on work as well. I think that's very important. Just being very, how can I say, stubborn in your routine, but being flexible as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you need to have some time to be able to just relax, rewind, because work can be hectic. As much as you enjoy work, as much as you enjoy doing certain things, you do need a break from it, because too much of it might, put you in a bit of a difficult place, a bit of a tired place, if that's to explain it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's more or less when those stresses does happen, you feel like you are overworking yourself. You do have to be selfish and just sometimes say to whether it's future clients coming in and just saying, oh, at the moment I am quite rammed, but I will keep you on like a waiting list and I will get back to you. I mean, I have no problem saying no. And even though I do not like to turn away business, but I do have to understand that sometimes it is a long process and I wouldn't like to burn out too easily. So yeah, but it's something I'm still working on.
Yeah. And something else now, we're going to jump into the strength and conditioning side of things for a little bit as well. What's the difference between, because you get a lot of people who say strength and conditioning coaches, doctors, physiotherapists, they're all things. So how would you differentiate a strength and conditioning coach to a physical therapist?
So with regards to strength and conditioning, so we actually, our main title and main aim is actually to improve performance whilst minimizing injury risk. So we do tend to work with players with regards to obviously improving their strength, improving their power, improving their overall athleticism, but whilst making it specific to the game of, obviously I'm working with footballers at the moment, so it'll be specific to their sport, whether it's football, hockey, etc. And ensuring that the player is able to go and compete, whether it's training or playing, at a high intensity for a sustained period of time. So yeah, that's the role really. We try to improve performance whilst making people more robust and healthy as well.
Based on what you said about how you work on improving the strength, on them being able to play or do whatever it is that the specific athlete needs for that sustained period of time, what happens, or what's the approach that you take if there's an athlete that you don't think will be able to do what they need to do over that extended period of time? Have you ever encountered an athlete who isn't physically capable of, for example, playing a full 90-minute game without getting an injury or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, most of my clients that I do work with, they all have their own individual differences and individual issues, whether that be a previous trauma with regards to injury history or a recent one, etc. So it'd be more or less, I tend to do like testing protocols with certain people, just to get some data and assess where they're physically at. And then from that information, I can make informed decisions in regards to the type of work that we'll do on the pitch, in the gym as well. So it's more or less, I try to create a holistic type of program for that specific individual. And that way we can obviously work towards a common goal, which is obviously if it's to improve their aerobic endurance, their strength and power on the football pitch, we'll have specific goals to actually achieve those targets. Yeah.
How important is it to have an entire team of everybody else doing some of the things that they need to do while you're doing some of the things that you need to do? Example, nutritionist, physiotherapist, etc. How important is it having that whole team together?
Yeah, I mean, Gab, we call that here a multidisciplinary approach, and it's very, very important, and it's something I've tried to create even with Max Performance. So I mean, I work with a great great gentleman called Mike Mantle, who obviously looks after the nutrition side of things. I also work with Paul Diggins, who looks after the physiotherapy side of things. And these kind of environments I've actually managed to create now is due to obviously working when I was during my time with AFC Bournemouth and obviously Oxford Academy and currently the first team now. And I'm seeing the integration between all these different departments and how it can actually improve a particular player. So with that information, I've been able to create that within Max Performance, and obviously I'm working with Gary Bloom as well, who's providing the sports psychotherapy services, etc. as well, and obviously Prince Lamona, who's providing the sports agency side of things as well. So yeah, it's very important to obviously provide that type of what we call a holistic approach with the individual in the middle, and that way we can actually help the individual improve, whether it's physically, mentally, tactically, to improve in the game and then performances as well.
With Max Performance, do you work specifically with football athletes, or do you work with just athletes in general?
So I work with just athletes in general. So it's more or less my role is to improve the athlete for a specific sport. So if I do get athletes coming from, say, basketball, for example, what I'll do is I'll go away and I'll look into the sport of basketball in terms of the physical capabilities of that athlete will be going through in a game, or what they'll experience in the demands of that game. So be more or less, okay, this is the type of movements that they're doing, this is how long they're playing, they need to have this level of endurance. And then with that information, I can, as I mentioned earlier, I can go and do obviously the testing protocol specific to that athlete as well. And then we can obviously work on improving that athlete physically to improve that performance for that sport. So I do tend to work with a range of athletes, but it's mainly footballers.
Are there many differences between some of the work that they do? Like, are the differences major, rather, is what I'm asking, or is it a case of, like you say, going to research and then building on that foundation that you already know and then applying to their sport?
Yeah, I think that'd be, again, going back to the individualization point, it's more or less just trying to be very specific in terms of my programming to that individual. So when I have a consultation with a specific athlete, again, I'll look into what the sport is. However, I do have to assess who the individual is, their injury history, their previous training history, their movement screens. Can they move well? Can they produce power well? And I will put into place specific tools to assess those type of movement qualities. And then with that information, then I can actually go on board and see, okay, what we need to work on with that particular individual. So that tends to be my process with work with any individual across any sport. And then obviously when it comes to the actual training, I'll try to make those movements as specific to the demands that the person will experience in their sport.
All right. And quite clearly, you've given quite a bit of information with regards to your career path. What would be advice that you'd be giving somebody who's thinking about going into sports strength and conditioning, getting their degree?
Yeah.
That's sports science, strength and conditioning. What would you give advice who's in the middle of it? And perhaps what would you give somebody advice who, like you, is maybe starting an internship that could probably be a very difficult process if you don't know what to expect?
Yeah, I would say in honesty, if I could tell myself 6 years ago that I would be in a position which I've done quite well now that I am today, I'm actually thankful for keeping with the grind and pushing my way through. I would advise people to definitely get themselves a mentor. I mean, to this date, I'm still working with one mentor who's my colleague that I work with at Oxford, Chris Shaw, and we're close friends as well. I mean, at Bournemouth, I had Ben Bradley as a mentor. Scott Daly was my mentor when I first came into the first team environment. Holly Pickett was my mentor when she obviously offered me the part-time role. So I'll say definitely find yourself a mentor and learn from that mentor and listen to what they say. So I mean, initially Ben Bradley said, Dwayne, even though you're doing an internship now, do go and coach elsewhere. Go find yourself a semi-professional team. Go and work with players in the off-season. Listen to what he said and did exactly that. So it's more or less getting that experience on board as well, and not solely just rely on qualification, because when you do go into these interviews, they are gonna, first thing they'll ask is your experience, and then obviously your qualification, etc. So I would say find yourself a mentor, coach different ages, different sexes, different abilities, different sports if possible, and keep learning and keep enjoying the process, really.
Final question, Dwayne. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And what are your hopes for your business max performance? Where would you like the business to be at that stage?
Gosh, very good question, Gabby. Next 5 years, definitely for the business standpoint, to continue to grow as it is. I mean, I'm working on a few projects at the moment, which will be released. All projects will be released actually this side of 2020. So it's more or less just providing a holistic service to everyone that's obviously looking for, whether it's a sport performance service or sports management service, or even football coaching, etc. So it'll be looking to obviously create a lot of avenues and a lot of interest from people from around the world and in the UK as well. And in terms of for my own personal profession, it's just to keep enjoying what I'm doing at the moment, which is coaching as many people as possible, helping as many people as possible achieve their full potential, really. And yeah, just keep enjoying what I'm doing and keep learning.
I have no doubt that it's something that you're going to stop enjoying at any point in time. And I also have no doubts at all that there's going to be a lot of people who takes this advice to heart, and it's something that'll help them carry through into the next stage of their life, particularly if they're going to follow the same career path as you are. So Dwayne, I want to thank you so much for joining on, and thank you for the chat.
No worries, yeah.
Pleasure. It's been at the
No worries.
Looking forward to the next one.
Definitely, Gabby. Yeah, no, I want to thank yourself for obviously having me on board tonight, and obviously I see the work that you're doing behind the scenes, Gabby, and just yeah, pleasure to be working with you, and yeah, just keep up, man, keep up.
Onwards and upwards. We grow, we move.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, bye.